This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Today's show focuses on the Rivian truck, as well as an update on batteries from China. Wanted to thank you all for joining us. If this is your first time on our channel, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. So typically, we're a Tesla-focused show and have not done that many reviews of others, but I want to say it fits because part of Elon Musk's strategy was to figure out a way to help grow the number of electric vehicles and the type of vehicles that exists. So this actually fits that mold. Please, a reminder, if you like the show, please take time to like and subscribe. And we also greatly appreciate those of you who are Patreon supporters. So we had a few of our viewers ask us about opinions on Rivian. The theory we had was the fact that it would be an easy destruction by Tesla and Elon Musk whenever Tesla got around to it. So our theory was, I hope they get far fast, because once Tesla enters, there's so many advantages that Tesla has that the Rivian pretty much wouldn't exist anymore. And so we want to kind of update that and suggest that Rivian actually has done a really nice job. And they actually have Ford. Among their backers is Ford, as well as Amazon. One of our theories on Rivian that we thought was really attractive is the fact that they've actually made an effort to come at the whole conversation of electric vehicles from a different angle. Instead of coming straight at Tesla, they're actually coming from, if you will, the SUV rugged outdoor direction. And what we've always been impressed by is the fact that there are a lot of people that own SUVs that never go off-road, but those vehicles end up being used in heavy snow and situations like that, and only occasionally go off-road. So in general, we think it's actually a good product. I have to give kudos to the folks that put this together, because most people are trying to do a routine where they go straight at Tesla and they're looking for giant numbers. And we're impressed by Rivian's effort to come from a slightly different angle, but this clears space for them to do well without necessarily having to be head-to-head with Tesla in a destructive battle. So let's go through some specs that we think are important on the basics before we sort of get into our perspective on it. The first is that their most expensive vehicle has 180 kilowatt hour battery, and that's pretty impressive. As you know, Tesla stops at 100. So some other data points are this 180 kW battery gives them 400 miles of range, no range anxiety issues. Once you get to your destination, you can actually potentially get to an off-road destination and run a house or something of that sort for multiple days in the process. Another element of the truck that we were impressed by is that they're running evidently a 0 to 60 time of 3 seconds. So for those of you who are SUV fans, you not only get your save the planet-ness going, but you also get some nice performance to go with it. It's interesting because as I looked at the truck, I was kind of wondering, number one, Tesla is really forced into a situation where they're chasing aerodynamics in every mile you could gain possible, be it the door handles or the shape of the nose and all these other elements. And one of the things we were wondering about is, why it is that the structure of the truck really didn't pick up on some of these aerodynamic issues. And you could argue against that by the fact that if you're mostly running off-road, the vehicle is not traveling at high speeds. So I think about 35 miles an hour is where you start to get into the value of aerodynamics in terms of impacting the vehicle. So one could go with that argument. Frankly, the other thing I was really asking about with this vehicle is that I don't drive a truck. I just drive regular cars or regular family SUVs. But there's a whole segment of the world that's waiting on some, there's a whole segment of the world that's heavily into Jeeps. And the number one thing we've noticed about that whole Jeep market is individuality. You have a lot of people who've produced some very nice vehicles, and basically you have a zone where they like to modify everything. So one of the things I was looking for about this truck was, are there extra slots for headlamps in front? Are there de facto factory methods for modifying the vehicle? So I was very surprised that they didn't sort of turn this into, I want to call it an etch-a-sketch set, but more like a Lego situation where take the truck, make it building blocks for a whole bunch of other things, and therefore you have this vehicle come out and it could go in any direction. So speaking of that, one of the directions that they really emphasize is the camping element. So they have a setup that shows off the fact that they could actually put a stove in and you could cook without having a fire out in nature and use the extra electricity you have to do so. Another thing they show off is using the bed of the truck to rotate campers out of the back of it. And so I think those are valid methods for how one might use it. And, I have to say that it's good that they're going in this direction. And we hope to see more from them in that regard. So huge flexibility, very nice. Another way in which Rivian might work is actually quite complementary to how Tesla operates. So if you think about it, it'd be excellent to have a couple of, have solar panels on the roof and have a couple of power walls and simply be able to power up this truck in that fashion, particularly if you're either off-grid or nearly off-grid. And in rural areas, sometimes gas stations could be far apart. So if you could be self-contained in this fashion, another element that we think represents a good iteration of how sort of Tesla is working with these folks. The fifth point that we wanted to make about Rivian was the fact that they seem well organized and well funded. So the factory, they've modified a Mitsubishi factory in the Midwest where they'll do production, and they've sourced funds from some of the biggest companies in the world, including Ford and the folks at Amazon. So what we're intrigued by is as soon as Ford came in the back end here, and given that they're the number one entity in the world when it comes to selling pickup trucks, for us, this really feels like an opportunity for Ford to help facilitate an outsider that they're invested in. And if things work out well, they could become the distribution entity or simply buy them completely, not unlike how drug companies tend to operate in terms of letting the drugs be developed, and then you have an investment there, and then you sort of swallow them whole, and now you don't have to have internal battles of how to get this product to market. So I think that $500 million invested by Ford represents an excellent move by them to sort of enter this space. The other thing we were kind of surprised by is the fact that when you go 180 kW, the batteries for this vehicle are, if 100 kW is going for $40,000 in the open marketplace and you're doing 180, batteries alone for this vehicle are heading towards $100,000. It's about 80K. And this is also an interesting move because, there are no cost considerations here. when it came to delivering their solution. And the question is, does that make sense? And the answer is, there's a very large number of customers in that space with large amounts of resources that are willing to spend it to get the right type of vehicle. And the other thing that this sort of brings up is the whole issue of, even if individuals aren't purchasing trucks of this nature, what about these trucks, really being targeted towards certain corporate customers who, for whatever reason, may want to be involved in this? And speaking of corporate customers, we actually think that the biggest problem Rivian is going to have is both management and production capacity, because within the last month, it was announced that Amazon is going to be purchasing 100,000 vans that are going to be electric, that are going to be part of their fleet. So basically, Rivian will now move into the zone where they actually are producing vans on the platform of the truck. And now you have, in theory, it's probably not going to be a 400-mile van. It's definitely going to be 200 to 300 miles because of the weight of the shell the van might carry, plus freight that they're carrying. But this is excellent range, better than anything else that's out there in terms of electric vans that are available. So our theory is that if they were tooling up a factory to do production, now the question that kind of pops up is, what are you guys going to do? Because you actually have 100,000 orders. And in theory, once those initial orders are done, there may be other customers that want to, come on the back end of that. But I just think it'd be hard to flex the same production line between pickup trucks and vans, because, other than the frame, one would say that the gap is so wide between the types of vehicles being produced, it has to be a separate facilities. And that's the beauty of the Ford relationship, because if in fact you have Ford or a Ford facility helping to build both the vans and the pickup trucks, you can separate the two entities and it's not a big deal. So in general, I have to say, hats off to the folks at Rivian. They've built a nice product. It leverages off of the knowledge that Tesla has put out there in terms of potential of electric vehicles, which is good. It also works for a large segment of customers, particularly those who want to go electric and don't want to have to do it themselves and want to do so in the form of a pickup truck. The question is, how does this competitively impact Tesla? The answer we have for that is not really. I mean, right now, Tesla's stuck with large amount of demand for all the Tesla vehicles that are available, be it, the Model 3, X's and S's are down in revenue, but with the Model Y coming on, the Semi, the Roadster, all these other vehicles, even once Tesla chooses to bring out its pickup truck this month, the question is, where are they going to produce this and when? And given the history that we have on the Model 3, as well as the Semi, as well as even the S, we're still 2 or 3 years away from Tesla's pickup truck showing up. So, so basically, Rivian has done a great job of finding a niche that Tesla is not heavily built into and bringing those products to market successfully, with a large number of solid corporate customers as partners to help facilitate their dream. So it's kind of fascinating to see them display the pickup truck that you see the footage on behind me, but at the same time, at the same time, they're now a van company. They're not really a pickup company for the next couple of years, because supposedly the vans will start rolling off at the end of 2020. And it'll be nice to see more vehicles on the road and electric, and not necessarily a head-to-head, will Tesla crush them or will they not? So that's kind of interesting. Our next point here is there's a weird question that sort of pops up, and that is that there's a car called a convertible. And so what you do is you take your basic two-door, you cut off the roof, you put reinforcements in the body of the vehicle so it doesn't crumple if it was hit. And now you have a convertible. One of the weird questions that we have about Rivian and Tesla and all the new vehicle delivery that's going on is, why is it that we just don't have Tesla cut off the back end of a Model X and a Model X and have a short bed vehicle of that sort out there? And obviously you have to do some reinforcing to make sure that the body is right, but that setup would sell like hotcakes, excuse me, and it would revive sales of the X in the pickup form. In theory, you might want to add a foot or two so that you can have more storage in the bed, but this could be a very simple process of delivering a new vehicle and delivering it quickly, and you have the X and S, or the X capacity available right now to get this vehicle done and on the road in that 3 to 6 month zone, because there's so little engineering that's required to complete it. So the good answer to that would be they've got enough on their hands to bother to even mess with that, and so it's not going to happen. But it's a simple concept, but simple doesn't really fly very high at Tesla. But I think there are a lot of customers that would go nuts and buy it in large amounts. The last question mark that comes to mind about this whole situation and the competition between the two is, as we shared, when you have 400-mile range, it gives you a lot of room to play with. So yes, this vehicle has the issue of lack of superchargers related to that Tesla has, but you kind of make up for that because you got so much range that most situations you could kind of handle it, and it's even more range than Tesla's offering to their customers. So there is a handicap relative to superchargers, but based on the niche they're really targeting and the amount of range they're having, we're getting into the range zone where it turns out not to be a big deal. This also brings up one last question, and that is, why didn't some of the big companies think of this already, and what might happen if Daimler or others choose to enter the space in a very similar manner? And they have the resources, they have the customer base already, etc. And I would say that Rivian is kind of showing the way, and I would not be surprised to see several of the large competitors out there that are not happy in their results head-to-head with Tesla, sort of mirroring what's going on with Rivian and delivering a similar type of vehicle in every way, especially with the long range on the battery, maybe even a little bit more, which helps facilitate perhaps a new market segment for them in terms of new customers, and the fact that it's not a head-to-head with Tesla situation means those customers have to come because Tesla offers no option in the near term, to make that happen. So overall, we'd say congratulations to Rivian. Nice product, nice ideas. We know it's still just in the prototype phase right now, but it was well conceived and executed, and we wish them luck. I would say the only problem that I can see with what they're doing is the whole concept of a double the size battery in a pickup is something that all the large competitors are capable of and can move on quickly and sort of destroy Rivian. So if they don't get to market quickly and start to build relationships with customers, I think they'll find themselves in a very competitive situation with some very big brands that they're not out for blood, but they're out to both maintain and gain market share, and therefore might run over a smaller company. The one proviso here is that if this starts rolling and Ford is involved, clearly Ford's ability to bring this product into their showrooms, by the company and do so, will help this whole thing work fine. But I just think that, Ford deserves credit here as well for having perhaps an R&D facility are finding a way to maintain their dominance when it comes to selling pickup trucks. So we look forward to your comments and questions on this segment of our show. One last thing that we wanted to review today is that there's a big discussion that popped up regarding Yahoo just announced that Elon Musk, while in China, had a 40-minute meeting with the head of CATL, a battery manufacturer in China that is currently building up, I think, at least one plant in Germany on behalf of VW, but they're actually ramping up as a major supplier of batteries around the world. And it's been suggested that Tesla may have signed a contract to buy batteries from CATL. Now, Elon did indicate that there's a combination of origins for batteries for Tesla, one being the Gigafactory in China, two being Japan, and then third being sourcing locally in China. Now, we're kind of questioning this. I mean, new reports keep popping up. There are no official announcements that keep coming out from Tesla. What we're suggesting, guiding, thinking is basically, unless it's official from Tesla, we're not believing it because they've got a great relationship with Panasonic already. And the real question mark that comes up is how easily can you port the battery management technology that Tesla has to new vehicles, and especially in the face of the fact that Panasonic is increasing battery production. So it's going to be interesting how this plays out. Another variable that's sort of sitting in the background is it took 3 years for Tesla to build the first battery facilities at Giga, I guess we'll call it Giga 2. And what's interesting here is that the Chinese are thought to be able to build a similar facility in, under 9 months. So as Tesla gets rolling, they're going to have battery capabilities that are coming from, behind the factory where they could build their own, be it in partnership with Tesla or by themselves. So this CATL announcement actually elevated their stock by $7, or 7%, I believe, which is good. But I don't know I think I'm somewhat skeptical about batteries coming from this destination. So we'll see whether or not that actually occurs. So we don't have a lot more to add in the case of Rivian. They are still in the prototype phase, and we don't have a lot of vehicles on the road that we can assess from customers' experiences. But again, excellent group of engineers and folks that have put this together. The logic is sound. The product is unique relative to what everybody else is trying to do. So we wish them well. And I think it's a very interesting product that will definitely make some noise if they don't end up becoming a manufacturer of vans on a full-time basis. This thing will do well until the other major makes decide they're going to forcefully enter the space and deliver some new vehicles. So wanted to thank all of you for joining us for our Rivian show. We really don't think it's competition for Tesla because Tesla could come in quickly and do something well in this space. But I just think they have too many priorities that consume manufacturing space and time to do anything huge here anytime soon. But, I think it's a great product, and we definitely wish them well in their quest to deliver something new. So at this point, I wanted to say hello to Jerry, and thanks for your comments. Gareth, greetings. Brother Donovan, enough respect. We've seen a couple of comments come by. I think what we're going to end up doing is going ahead and placing those beneath the show. That way we can respond in that form and have other folks be able to respond to it as well. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Please remember to like and subscribe. Wanted to encourage you to do 25 leg lifts a day if possible with a 5-pound weight, strengthening the quad muscles and limiting the amount of knee damage issues you might have as you age. Also, reminder, don't go to bed within 2 hours of eating, preferably 4 hours. Let the food digest. No acid reflux issues. And, Sure, Jerry. What was your question, please? So one of the things that I've stopped doing is actually thoroughly reading comments during our live shows because those not watching have really been angered by the fact that it's distracting and it hurts the ability to sort of, keep a show flowing. So Jerry, please, what was your question? I think he's still typing here, and I'm happy to respond. Let's see. Oh, Rivian fuel savings. Excellent question about fuel savings from Rivian. The de facto MPG of the vehicle wasn't something that was highlighted in the data that we saw. I'm wondering, the quickest response that comes to mind is if you're fueling this thing using solar panels to power walls, you know, I would say that that's a nice iteration mentally. Where I'm at with this vehicle is that it's more of an off-grid location type of vehicle. So people might be running their own solar farms as well as, solar on the roof. Clearly, there are going to be, city setups for this vehicle where they're going to plug it into the wall and they're going to wonder, how is it doing relative to what you just described? So I think that is actually an excellent question. Because the battery packs weigh so much and they're using double the battery packs of what Tesla is basically using, we actually expect for their net fuel economy to be lower. And I'll do some research on this and actually post it, as part of the answers that we provide on the show. But, I think it's actually a very good question. We didn't focus on it because, the data that was primary seemed to be, the range and some others, but it's definitely a question mark for those who are our corporate customers who have to figure out what all the costs are for an interface with it. So, very, very good point. Mm-hmm. At any rate, wanted to thank all of you for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. In German, tschüss, French, au revoir, Chinese, ni hao ma, Russian, zdravstvuyte, hejdu, in Swedish, Khoda Hafez, Farsi, Lehitraot, Hebrew. In Jamaica, we say, enough respect, walk, good man. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to your after-show comments. Have a great day, and bye for now.